good today. I set up my MetaTrader before we get on, or not my MetaTrader, my Ninja Trader before we get on the call. Did a good job. Let me get the stream started and we will get right to
it. Let's get it. 9:30. 9:30.
All right. Sorry, excuse me. Can everybody see? Can everybody hear me? Sound nice and crisp. Beautiful. How are you doing today, guys? We had a good morning so far? So I posted this earlier, and we talked about this in the weekly outlook. I just want to kind of bring attention to make sure to always, if we have this weekly plan, like one thing I know I used to mess up on when I was newer is I would come up with this weekly plan, and, the week starts unfolding, and you just completely forget about the plan. And a lot of people kind of forget to zoom out whenever it's needed. Like if you have these higher time frame levels, if you swapped into them, a lot of people will take losses like saying, oh, okay, well, we're going to be bearish here. Now, we might be, but remember, high card always rules. So we're in that weekly fair value gap. I'm interested to see what happens here at this fair value gap. I'm just going to delete these just because I don't like having stuff all over my chart. I think it kind of fucks your attention up. We're in this 4-hour fair value gap. We have this candle closing in 28 minutes. Also, we could look for some kind of fail flip. So if we get really good bullish action, I'm not there yet, but if we get really good bullish action and hold and to get a fail flip in this area, we could maybe catch a long up higher. Remember, the overall idea was to do that. That was the beginning idea. Now, I'm not saying we'll go all the way up here or anything this morning, but just something to pay attention to, because I know it's really easy to kind of almost forget that the plan was to trade, down into the weekly fair value gap and then go higher. So just drawing attention back to kind of get grounding yourself, making sure you don't get stuck in the movements that are a part of the overall general idea. Very important, because it's easy to do that. Show of hands, how many people just completely forgot about the fair value gap? Lexi, I also posted that here. I posted it in the Discord, by the way. I don't know, you said it in the Telegram, but it was posted in the Discord too. I want to make sure that you see where to look for those. It's not any analysis channel. Now, I want to see if the 4-hour confirms, right? Which would be us. That was what I was just talking about us. Because if the weekly fair value gap, if we're in it, we want to see 4-hour getting some kind of IFVG. That's what I was referring to, like something right here. And that's what we were just going over. So, or a fail flip on the 15, kind of just confirming, which is what I'm leaning towards a little bit. So do you have your notifications on? Because if you have your notifications on, you got pinged this morning. And then also, let me just drop the link to the channel. That way you do know in the future. Definitely want to make sure you see these, because super important. Right there. But yeah, see how many of you guys, completely forgot about that. And it's normal, but I just, hopefully, and here's the thing, sometimes that will happen. Again, it's always about, kind of predicting, reacting instead of predicting. But just good example of something that, I know there's a lot of times where I make a decision and I'm like, yep, that's somewhere I used to fuck up. And if I know that that's what it was for me, I know that there's going to be multiple other people that were, that make those same mistakes. That's the funny thing. Like some people on either in here or in YouTube, right, they're like, dude, it's like you read my mind. I'm like, yeah, because I used to do the same shit. It's not like I'm just like psychic. Like I was terrible at one time. Discord can lag significantly notifications on the phone. Interesting. I ended up having to turn off all Discord notifications except direct tags in this channel. I left pretty much all Discords other than this one too. just because I was like getting swamped. So, as we're talking, this is just flying. So, we'll see. And we also, by the way, another thing to keep in mind, this morning we had GDP that was greater than expected. The prelims, at least, I should say. Um, so, that is, usually actual being greater than forecasted is better for DXY. But it can also be good for the stock market. So if we notice, DXY is running, but GDP is one of those things, like you can have the stock market and the dollar moving together. And GDP is just a sign of overall like economic health. And it was 2 points higher than expected, which is a fairly big deal. Now, I'm not saying we're just going to, up only now, but I would say that this looks a little bit more like a market maker model at this point. But I want to see if we can get some kind of framework to actually catch a trade. We're coming off of a really good day yesterday, and I know that sometimes that can make one a little bit more trigger happy. Like you can be a little more risk on, but make sure to have logic. Also, I know for some people, if you didn't catch a trade or you messed up, and here let me just go ahead and do this. Let me go ahead and bring you guys awareness because I want to start reminding you guys this. If you are planning to trade today, right now, make sure that your trigger finger is ready. Make sure your trading software is set up. Make sure that you are aware at all times where we are in price. Because if trades come, you need to be ready to execute them. So, just throwing that out there. This is a friendly reminder. If the first fair value gap on the 4-hour gets inverted when the candle closes at 10 a.m., but we fell short to invert the second fair value gap, does that still confirm it? Yes, 100%. Because the first sign for me of any kind of bullishness on this 4-hour, since it is accompanied by that weekly, that is enough. I'm not going to need because if you wait for multiple, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to wait for this market structure shift. It's like, well, okay, the move's already over. You know what I mean? So I'd rather be a little bit more aggressive since we have that higher time frame on our side than to be super patient and miss out on the whole move. I mean, at the end of the day, what's the worst that happens? We just take a loss, right? I think a lot of times people will try to formulate, try to find every possible reason why not to take action or to take an aggressive, very confident viewpoint in the market. And usually this is because of the fear of being wrong, but it's more about you don't want to be wrong more than even the fear of losing. Because when you're like, okay, what happens if I'm wrong? You take a loss. Everybody's still going to be alive, right? It's kind of like emergencies in business. Like there was somebody that was like, oh, it's an emergency, it's an emergency. I'm like, okay, is someone dying? No. Okay, it's not an emergency. Like if we, you know what I'm saying? Like most things that people think are emergencies or most things that people think are serious are not actually that serious. It's just serious in your mind. Like if you just don't do anything about it for a couple hours and nothing just drastically happens, it's not an emergency. Let me help with brick video settings. Discord's so great and awful at the same time. It's like, why doesn't it just when you join, why doesn't it just have your system audio? Also, I don't know if you guys notice, every time that I start a stage, I literally have to leave it and join it again for my mic to work. It's been like that for a year now. It's fucking so easy to fix. It's so weird. I'm just like, guys, you can do better than that. Come on. Marking out the TSO, it's, keep an eye on it. We didn't really get much of a Judas below it, so that's something to keep an eye on. But, I'm not saying that we will either. It's pretty big momentum. We are pretty extended here, so I'm just kind of interested to see how we react. Do we form a fair value gap? I'm more interested right now in letting us form some kind of foundation. Because when we just have a huge candle, it's like, okay, are we going to form a 5-minute, 15-minute fair value gap? Are we not going to form a fair value gap? Because that can tell us a lot. Let's just say if this 15-minute candle ends up closing all the way down here under this high, we still have 5 minutes, you never know what could happen. Then it's, oh, okay, well, that's a completely different story we're looking at. You know what I mean? patient. Don't be super, 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 finger on the trigger. And one thing too, if you guys can learn from me, like we'll sit here and say, okay, this looks good, but everything can change in a minute. And let me give you a great perspective shift. Like people will be like, oh, like well, I thought we were bullish. Why did we switch bearish? It's like, let's be honest. If you were really 100% solid on being bullish, most of the time you probably took a trade. Does that make sense? Like if you're truly like, yeah, I'm very confident it's being bullish. Like, okay, why don't you put risk on it then? Because if not, then you're still waiting for a confirmation. So it's very important to reframe your mind. But one thing that ICT does say that I think I disagree with, not I think, but I think it's wrong, I disagree with, at least, I mean, the idea is right, but the perspective that it puts a new trader in is wrong, is like, you just have to have a daily bias and you just don't change from it ever. I think that that's very detrimental to a day trader specifically, because, I mean, look, I mean, maybe if you're just amazing at getting the daily bias before the market opens and you're a fucking fortune teller, great. But I'm not. And I still make great money trading. And that's because a lot of the times I'm not afraid to switch. You gotta remember, it's like a company, like the market is your greatest source of feedback, just like your customers are your greatest source of feedback. Never ending feedback loop if you let it be. Huge, huge, huge mindset shift that can help a lot of you guys. And you'll notice too, those little mindset shifts will make more impact in your trading than most stuff. Because it's a lot of things are just how you frame it mentally, is how it's going to affect the way you feel about it, affect the way you make decisions based on it, and just affect the overall kind of culture that you trade with. It's like your unspoken handbook that determines how you make decisions, how you behave, how you feel, how you think, is really just the perspective that you look at things from. So watching this 5-minute fair value gap now, I want to just kind of see what, that's really all we have to work with. If there's 15 minutes not looking as hot if it comes down here and closes, especially under even this gap. Just kind of watching, seeing any kind of footprints that we leave that we can watch and see how price interacts with to give us a possible clearer bias. Also take a look at NQ. I'm sorry, not NQ. ES looks a little bit more heavy. It looks pretty ugly, and YM looks even uglier, so keep that in mind. So what I'd watch right here is if we get any kind of price trading back up into this, I want to just continue to watch how price develops. I'm not ready to just sell it here. I see the sell by chance, I do, but I also could see it getting clapped out. But if I continuously see continued bearish order flow, that would be maybe enough for maybe to take a sell down to that 730, or maybe even down here. But I want to give it some time, be patient with it. If it runs with that, like if this just runs all the way to 730 from here, so be it. But I want to get a little bit more before I put any risk on it. Can also watch this for an inversion, or just kind of, again, it's just watching price as it develops. And the reason that I'm a little bit more patient here is because we haven't had that fake out, like we haven't had a sweep. Usually in the lower time frame, you want to see something like this, right? You get that last little consolidation before the sweep. So a lot of times what happens, if you don't, is you get this. And then all that liquidity gets swapped out. Sometimes it doesn't, but just giving you the reasoning, because I want you guys to understand. It's very important to me that you guys understand what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. I'm sorry, not only what I'm doing, but why I'm doing it. Nice, Rich. That's what's up. I love that, Kirsty. Yeah, that's the one thing I try to do, is just really kind of like put things in a different perspective, because it's like the hidden little gems like that that'll make the biggest impact. Are we above London highs, and does that mean anything to you? Yeah, we're above pretty much all-time base liquidity at this point, in terms of everything except the previous daily high. So, um, but I mean, if you look also, just literally since Asia's session, all we did was run to the upside. We had GDP this morning too, so I'm not paying it as much mind. But yes, the answer is yes. If no sweep, then really watch reaction to footprint. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Like I closely watch this. If that's what you're saying, then the answer is yes. Like I just kind of am watching price as it goes, seeing what we get, seeing what the market's telling me. Like another thing where my mind goes right here is like, okay, we formed a little swing high. How do we react with liquidity in this area? These are the areas that I look for a manipulation block to form. So like, let's say if we closed above this and the next candle immediately engulfed it, or even if we get a big bearish reaction, those are things that I would pay attention to. Not super sold on taking a sell just yet. Even if we got like a manipulation block immediately, I wouldn't be super sold on taking a sell. See, it's like when I watch that, what my mind goes to is like, okay, I would want a very sharp reaction very soon. If this was going to be the level that pushed you down, because you've already tapped into it once, swept liquidity. Ideally, and this is where the advanced market structure comes into play. Ideally, you want the very next low or swing high that's made to be lower than that first to show weakness. And that's just advanced market structure. And that's also, for those of you who are newer, that's I think it's in week 5. Yeah, it's week 5. Would we want those equal highs to be taken? Yeah, I would. For shorts, that's what I was saying before. I'd rather have that. That's why I'm a little bit more hesitant to take it short, because I don't look at it like, wow, this is clear as day. And usually when I'm looking at something and I'm thinking it's not really clear as day, then I'm really picky on the amount of reasons that I need to get into it. Right? Because again, like a lot of people misunderstand. You can get your entry model. Oh, you get a market structure shift and a fair value gap. That is the only thing that filters like how this is going to work is everything else, the context of what is this happening in. Because if you just took out some kind of higher time frame liquidity, great. But let's just say you have a ton of equal highs right, above that. Okay, well that's a different story. So it's not really as much the market structure shift or the confirmation that matters as much as the context of which it's occurring in. I still don't see a super strong sell either here. Possible SMT forming with ES. Actually, I'm going to take a long right here with a stop under this most recent low. Right there. I like that. The reasoning for that is just, again, like I was saying, I'm watching this fair value gap for how we're reacting. This doesn't look like a very bearish reaction to me, right? Ideally, you want to see this fair value gap hold before trailing a stop or anything like that. So overall, would be watching these equal highs. Yeah, everybody should have got on that one. if you like just to be a little aggressive here on the stop trailing, now that we've formed that fair value gap, I don't want us to go lower than it. So let me just delete all these little lines. I'm going to bring this up, but that candle's low. That right there. So we've just cut risk a little less than in half. Because we did just come above this liquidity up here. If the market was going to reverse, it's going to happen right here. So the way I look at it is like, if it's going to continue, we should see a nice reaction from this fair value gap. Now that we've pushed up above this high, we do have the position, or the possibility that, hey, we're wrong. If it's going to reverse, I think if it goes here, it's going to go lower. So just that's the reason, cut off a little bit of risk, since we are catching a little bit of an aggressive move. Now, if it starts to invert and starts to give us more of a clear downside, there's still another opportunity to the downside. That's another reason why I want to preserve risk here. So there we go, that's taken out. So that's like, we'll say like point, I don't know, moved it what, from, yeah, so it was like we just saved a good bit of risk. My entry was 594 originally. So cut risk a little bit less than in half. So just leaving it here. I'm still pretty open to either side of the market. Want to see a clear direction though, for the day, if I'm going to take it to the downside. I think the market is still in that decisive phase right now. Like it's trying to decide whether it's or not it's going to move to the upside. I want to see if it's going to move to the upside, where we are overextended. Usually in these times I want to see it happen very fast. If it doesn't, then we might have a possible sell on our hands. Looking at this manipulation block also up here. Want to see if we pull back into this or how we react. May end up taking a little bit like a half risk sell. Watching, waiting to see. I'm just watching these candles print, seeing what kind of reactions we get, seeing the behavior of price as it's coming. Notice how what I'm doing is just watching the most recent order flow that's been formed. There's a fair value gap, an inverted one. I'm just always moving over and keeping my eye on that. Also, just be patient. Be ready to pull the trigger either way, depending on the entry I give. Just be ready. But I'm not. I will note, or I will announce if I do take a position. I'm just watching this closely. I'm not looking at the chat right now. So the only thing that I'm noticing here, paying attention to, is we do have this fair value gap right here, just not far below. So, okay, well, there we go. I was gonna see if we do jet into this. I want to see how it reacts, or maybe we get another long. Yeah, I'm gonna hop in another long.
Where the fuck is your stop?
Stop loss will be right here. And that'll most likely be the last trade I take. So I don't want to put more than 1.5 bar on the table today. So we had a great day yesterday, and decent day on Tuesday. Nothing insane, but don't want to. Don't want to put too much back on the table. But I take into the account the 1 hour touch in OB. I'm more or less paying attention overall to the weekly bias, and I'm anticipating this 4 hour fair value gap. I mean, unless we have a huge dump in the next 2 minutes, is going to be inverted. So that's more of what I'm paying attention to. Also, yes, if I say I'm putting my stop here and then I put it on the red candle, that is 100% where you should put your stop. Or I'm sorry, I put on the red dot. Like whatever low I put it on, it's going to be, that's where the stop's at. Always. I mean, if you want, if sometimes I'll see people put their stop a little wider, but that will result in a very different trade for you. Yeah, I'd watch the market up above these highs is what I'm looking for if it reaches that. Is it rejecting off that 5-minute fair value gap that was 4 minutes ago? If you're looking, when you say 5-minute fair value, oh, you're saying, I don't know actually where you're looking. Ray, if you could tell me what 5-minute fair value gap you're referring to. Profit target would be right around that 690 mark. Most recent 5-minute fair value gap. Oh, this. Yeah, sorry. Duh. That's what I mean. That's the idea here. Is that because I look at it like, okay, well, we come to that 5-minute fair value gap. Yeah, we got stopped by having a little bit of an aggressive, tighter stop here, which I think that was my mistake. But overall, this doesn't look bearish, right? Nothing about this right now tells me we want to sell off. Exact entry is right where we're at here, 640.25. TP would be that previous daily high up here, and I would want to use price weighting above it. I might just take in full if we reach it, just because it is a huge liquidity pool. But I'll keep you guys updated on that.
Gotta love when that happens.
So I won't just take it in full here. I'll kind of let it do its thing. But
Slow, slow.
I wouldn't raise stop. I'll just leave it where it's at. And worst that happens, we're down 1.5 bar. If you want, you can, but I could still see it coming down into this area again. What are the S in the point? Yep. Let's see, did the S take? No. Babcorp chipping away. Babcorp's running laps.
Oh, that leg thing killing me.
I think he wants to play games with our hearts today, huh? Doesn't want to just give us that easy PP.
Swept liquidity. Let's get push here, eh?
Yeah, I'm just gonna leave the stop there for now. Like, I'm not gonna trail it up. If it takes me out, I'm just gonna end the day and end the week on a still profitable note. That's the key too. Is sometimes like it'll just go all the way up right to target reverse on you, and you know there's gonna like there won't be if this did reverse and just goes from here, that'll be when I just write to the books and be like, well, you know, that's the way she goes sometimes.
You got to, though. You got to just let it ride. Just let it ride, let it ride.
But the important thing is understanding that like taking trades, like Babcorp, looks like you actually got like the absolute topmost. But if you wait until let's just say if you get scared, take the trade here, sure, that may save you today, like, and then it may reverse. You go, oh, I thank God I avoided the pain of taking a loss today. but doing that in the long term will help you avoid ever taking big wins too. It's all important about like, um, oh, what's up, Chris? I see. Okay, cool. I see you got it. I know that you were having there were some tech difficulties on our end, so I'm glad to see you in here winning. Welcome to the family as well, brother. Gotcha. And Nasdaq doesn't look like it wants to play nice. We'll see though.
Ooh.
The main reason also that they didn't move stops at all. I just saw somebody showing a RDRB. I wouldn't really look at this. I would want to see more of a wick overlapping, because if you look, there's no wicks. It's just bodies overlapping. The wicks don't touch each other. That's the reason I didn't move stops up there. I just saw that question. And same thing also, like with, if you look, there's actually a little very small gap here, but these wicks don't overlap. Hey, happy birthday. Let's go. There's a bring on the magnet. Yeah, we need it, huh? I want the magnet can save us. If I pull it closer, it'll help give a lift. And these are those times, like, this is where like I tell you guys, I ask myself questions all day. There's just like that inner, like you're like this is gonna just stop me out. Even though there's no logic, but you have to understand when you feel like that, you have to just do your thing. Like you have to just let it play out. Like if it stops you out, great. But there will be a lot of times you'll notice, and if you go back and remember, how many times have you felt like that and you took a trade too early and then it rammed your target? And I promise you, building the habit of doing that from emotion is worse than taking a loss. I promise. So that's why it's like, even to this day, if it makes you guys feel any better, to this day, when I'm sitting here, I'm like, you're ready to stop out. Like, just take it. That still happens. You just don't do it. Because a lot of people are like, how do you get over that? I'm like, you don't. You just don't do it. And you look at logic. It's like, okay, what's logic? Well, we have a displacement to the upside. We're in a fair value gap. Everything that we usually use to make money is in alignment. So, you know, if let's just say if it doesn't work, oh cool, well, you know, I played my role. I did the thing I was supposed to do, and you know, because it's funny, a lot of people too, especially I've noticed too, since we've had such a crazy run on the trading streams, like people hit me up and they're like, why didn't today work? And I'm like, that's trading. Like, yeah, we've pretty much won every single day for a while now, but it's like, don't forget that, you know, at the end of the day, that is just the probabilities playing out in our favor. You know, like you're still gonna lose. And you're gonna do everything right and still lose money. And you have to be ready to accept that. As I'm saying that as we about to get stopped. The valiant pre-execution speech. I'm just kidding. Because it's like if you let the probabilities play out whenever they're in your favor, and you're like, hell yeah. But then it's like whenever they, you know, that's why trading's hard for people. Because is because whenever things, aren't as easy, so to speak, you start getting imposter syndrome. Like, do I even know what I'm doing? Does the strategy even work? Oh my god, I just took 2 days of losses. Like, I don't think we've had 2 days of losses in a row in a long time. But anyway, still, even if you have 2 or 3 days of losses, like, just imagine this. Imagine right now. Imagine if you were to have 2 weeks of losing trades right now. How would you feel? A lot of you guys would literally be like heartbroken and distraught, devastated. Yeah, that's the best word. But it's like that's really like logically insane to think about. Like, why? Because if you've showed up let's just say you've showed up every day. We've had a profitable week ever since the second week of June. So it's like, imagine if you went 2.5 months of profitability, and then you went 2 weeks with, you lost money, and that devastated you. But that's normal. That's what most people do. It's also why most people don't make money in trading. And there's a lot of you guys who today, even if you take this loss, the week will still end profitable, and it's still going to devastate you. You know what I mean? Like, which is okay. I'm not trying to like say that's bad or shame you for it, and don't give yourself an F for that. But you always have to come back to like reason and be like, okay, like, that is a little ridiculous. If you like, that's the way I used to think of myself. I was like, dude, like, if you're saying you want to do this for your career, like, that shit's gonna happen. You know? There's a lot of people will go back and like, oh my god, it was so clear. There was a clear market making law. There was a clear this. I knew we should have fucking done that. Fuck Casper. You know what I mean? But like, it's always about being right in the long term, not the short term. But the important thing is that you guys know to use the magnet. So that's week 14. It unlocks once you join the Illuminati. That's the secret to the algo. Yeah, all jokes aside, the new people are probably like, who the fuck is this? Do it. Or other secret is multiple magnets. And if this doesn't work, then the market was just wrong. Yo, that gift. No, I'm just messing, guys. I'm struggling with RR. I feel like I'm getting 1.5 R in a 2-loss day. Doesn't get covered by winners. So, like, when you say on this trade, or what in specific? And another thing too is making sure that whenever, because like every time that I've talked to somebody that struggles with that, I'm like, okay, well, did you risk the same amount? And they're like, no. And it's like, well, that's the 100% thing that will screw you. Like, if you even one trade of just not risking the same amount you're supposed to, that will make your bigger winners not as profitable, or even your smaller winners not as profitable. I mean, like, statistically by half. So all it takes is one hesitation, or one, executing late, or one, not putting on a full position when you're supposed to derail all that. That's why risk management is like probably the most important thing once you learn the basics. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like those small things really do matter. And it's easy to kind of overlook that when you're starting, but like once you realize that, you're like, oh shit, okay. Like, well, yeah, I mean, like literally, like, let's just say if this trade does win, just hypothetically speaking, let's say it just wins, and you went like a third risk. It's like, okay, well, that trade did a third of the good it was supposed to do. You know what I mean? No, I wouldn't add. That's a great example as well. Like you don't want to add in the wrong times either. Like you need to have a very strategic way of adding. The only time you should add is if you can completely eliminate all the risk on your first entry and maintain the same amount of total risk on the position while adding. That's the only time you should ever add. Super hard to manage risk on Tradeovate web with multiple accounts. I've never used Tradeovate too much with multiple accounts. Yes, do I have different fib settings? Yeah, for the OT strategy, that'd be an OT fib setting, but then standard deviations is just the standard deviation. So if you guys, this might change a lot of your guys' trading or analysis, not your trading, but templates. So like, let's just say if I wanted a different template, let's just say if I wanted to only have the fucking whatever, I wanted to only have this. I'd say cool. I'd right click it, template, and then save as, and you'd have all these nice templates. And you could have OTE, standard deviations, and everything else in between.
Bro, what is going on? That's the Indian.
So about adding, what I was saying is you should never add to a position unless you're able to completely eliminate, or I'm sorry, not completely eliminate, completely sustain the same amount of risk. Let's just say if you have a trade, I think did that just take us? No, it's close. Not all the way though, but it's about to. There it goes. Almost.
There it goes.
That'll be done for the day from me. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, the adding. So if you add into a trade, like let's just say if you add into a trade and let's just say you have a trade that looks like this. Okay, you enter right here and your target's up. You have 2R, so to speak. Let's just say you have 2 contracts at risk with, we're just using random numbers, at 44 points, right? Well, if that's the case, if you actually have two contracts with 44 points, then you need to make sure that you do the math and see exactly how much you have at risk, which that would be 1,720, or I'm sorry, 1,760 dollars at risk. So let's just say if you wanted to add into your position, say the market moves, and let's just hypothetically you want to add right here. You wouldn't just add, like you'd have to calculate what it would be in terms of your overall total risk when you added the position. So let's just say, I have a 29-point stop loss. Well, let's just say if you have a lot of profit to play with and you're up tremendously from here, then you can look at that as, okay, well, if I add on to my position, counting my new profits as a buffer, does my total account loss still equal the same as it started? A lot of times, if you do it correctly and you have enough room, you'll be able to add on much more of a position size while sustaining the same amount of risk. But this doesn't happen that often whenever you're trading lower, like super lower time frames on small moves. A lot of the times it's going to take, that's something you usually do with like a swing trade. Or a very, very large trade. And to be honest, in my experience, if you have a very large trade on a lower time frame and you're really holding it, I think that you should only add in you need to really have a big range that you're working with. Because it's really easy to turn a really bad trade, a really good trade into a losing trade if you're not careful, just being greedy. So there has to be that logic in it. That's like the important thing. There you go, exactly. So, Claire, like that's exactly what I'm talking about. Got overexcited. Like, if you will never make money in this business doing that. I'm just gonna be very straightforward. It doesn't matter. You could be the best trader in the world. It literally matters nothing. I know. I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm just saying. Like, I promise. You have that. Like, that should be your main focus. Is just being sitting with yourself and being like, hey, okay, if I'm gonna continue doing this, I can't keep making these kind of decisions because if I do, it's gonna ruin it. You literally have to have those conversations with yourself. What would be a good start for micros? 2 or 3 to 5 on 50K. It's all gonna depend on the size of the stop loss, always. Like your stop loss might be 10 points, and it's gonna be a lot different than if your stop loss is 30. You're good, Clay. I know you know that. I'm just, don't give yourself an F for effort, or an F, so to speak. It's always just you got to be real with yourself. Like, don't, because being real with yourself means also being objective enough to not be angry with yourself. You know. And always too remember, like, those are all the same problems that everybody goes through, and that most traders never get over. Because I don't think that most traders don't understand how to, find good trades or don't understand how to generate profits from them. I think most traders don't understand how to handle losses or how to handle their risk or how to stay disciplined. Like those are the things. So it's like if most traders don't make money, you have to ask yourself pretty much in every scenario, like what does the average trader do? Like the average trader will go through, 2 weeks of winning, lose once, and over risk, and then erase all their 2 wins, and then be all depressed. That's what the average trader will do. So you have to ask yourself, am I behaving like the average trader, or am I behaving in a way that's going to be conducive to success? You always got to be 100% with yourself and stuff like that. And that those are going to be the highest leverage things that you can fix and stuff like that. But it happens. Do you think it's a valid idea to add if you have a feeler at an aggressive reversal entry model? Price action reverses continuation model appears. So usually if I'm entering on an aggressive like trade, and this is something I talked about, I think it's last Thursday's stream, or maybe Sunday's, and I'll go ahead and go into it again. Essentially, if you enter an aggressive trade, like for those of you who've been here, like there's been some days where we got, like the actual trade is like 10 to 14R, but we didn't net 10 to 14R, we got half that because we entered the trade with half size, right? So it's like, if that's the case, like if that's one of those things, then you have to be mindful and say, okay, well, like let's say if you have a huge run or a huge area to your target, then you have to be willing to just take a little bit smaller position, enter a little earlier, because then you have the chance of, okay, maybe I'll have this capture a really big move, so you don't need to risk as much. You have to look at risk like it's like soldiers. Like let's just say if you have like a special operation where it's like, you could win the war if you pull this off, but it's super risky. You're not going to just send your whole army in. You know what I mean? Like you got some intel. So I don't know. I always come up with crazy ass analogies, don't I? But that's the same thing, really. And another thing too, like Night Talks, like he's coming and saying he did the same thing that Claire did like last week. Look, every single one of you guys will do that at some point, so just go ahead and be prepared for that. Don't be like super hard on yourself. But the key is like when you make a mistake, to just don't make it twice. Like everybody's gonna go through that period, especially if you're new to trading and you come in here and we have like 2 weeks where it's just like fucking, oh my god, the market's crashing, we're just like made $4,000, I made 400 points. Like, what'll happen is like you're just like, hell yeah, trading's awesome. And then next thing you know, you're just like, oh, okay, this is actually like, you know, here's the trading part of it, like the the management, the consistency, and it has to sometimes slap you in the face for sure. Make sure I got any questions, answer anything. Guys will jump off in a second. If you guys have any, just go ahead and ring them off. I want to make sure. Would I consider tomorrow a better Friday to trade since we have high impact news? Better than if you don't have any news, but I would say always with Fridays, it's going to depend on how the Thursday. Like if we hit this today, I wouldn't say it's a good day to trade tomorrow. I'd say you kind of like have hit your clean target. Now, if you're like, let's just say the day does what it's, just hypothetically, I don't think this will happen. It just does this. You come in tomorrow, yeah. I mean, if you have a very clear framework or something, that's one thing. What's your peak balance on those? I'm here. If you pushed a buy market on NinjaTrader and nothing happened, are you sure you have it linking to an account? Well, if your peak balance was 51, 100, I don't know why it's saying your minimum is still 47.5. I would probably hit up support, to be honest, to see, because you're only down $700. So yep, Apex connection. So it's the Apex connection that's not working. You're sure that it's like selected the right one. Look, on your chart trader, like go to your chart and click chart trader. Can you show me what it says there? Yeah, you might need to restart, but I want to make sure that it's actually connected. And particles, you beat us today, bro. I'm down 1.5 R. Okay. Do you have your copier set up correctly? Because it looks like you might have just been in a trade on just one. Because it shows that you have an order put in on just one, and you put in a limit, not a market. So you hit buy limit. So you want to. What you would have used was a market, but you also haven't connected them all using the copier. No, not rhythmic, like your copier, your Apex copier. There's a video on how to use that in the same section that there's the tutorials for NinjaTrader. So if you're going to trade multiple accounts and you want them to all execute at the same time, you have to use the copier. So it copies them all. And then also the other thing I see there on that screenshot is you're using limit orders. So unless the market comes to that area that you put the limits at, then it's not going to. I don't know. You put a buy limit above price, so I don't know why it's doing that. But for one, don't use limit orders. Number two, you have to use your copier and make sure that's linked up. The limit was your desperation to go in after the buy market didn't work. Well, for one, don't enter on desperation. Yeah, and as Rich said, whenever I was using the Apex stuff, you just right click on positions if you ever need to, and just flatten all as like a fire alarm. But yeah, I don't know, man. I would if it were me, I would. That's the only troubleshooting I can really do. It seems like you did everything right if you tried to do a buy market. There just might be something set up that's wrong with the what's it called? The apex connection. CRT is essentially just if you switch. This is. I'll explain it. Essentially, it's like it's one of those things that happens like all the time and is pretty fucking. It's not. I won't say it's useless, but it's just like for example, you find a can. This is in a nutshell. There's more to it, I'm sure. If you sweep a candle's low and don't close above it or beyond it, you look for the candle's high. It's just taking an old ICT bias strategy and just applying it to any time frame. So like you sweep this low, you would look for a confirmation and look to trade at this candle's high. But I think doing it, as with anything, doing it without a context is not ideal. All right, guys, I'm gonna jet. Um, End of the week, slightly in profits, nothing crazy, but still nothing. Definitely nothing to write home about. But still under the green, so is what it is. Looking back on the situation or on the session, I would take the same trades again, so I'm not upset with it. Just one of those days. Almost hit the TP and then reversed on us. So just don't let it. Key is don't let that kind of stuff get to your head, guys. That's the one thing I can say. Is like I understand. Okay, the market runs within, whatever, an inch of our TP and reverses. That's just gonna happen sometimes. Sometimes it sucks. It always will suck. Just accept that. There's no way you're gonna get to a point where you're like, oh, that's fun. But the only thing you can determine and actually control is how you react to it. So yeah, awesome guys. I will see you guys on Sunday. And in the meantime, again, throwing this out there, if you have any questions, need any help, hit me in the forum or in the DM, and I got you. See you guys later. Peace.
Well, guys, took 2 losses today. Fortunately, it's